So what is the secret behind the ghost cities of China? What you see here is myself and Lao86 standing in a ghost city in Liaoning province. This isn't the only ghost city we visited, however. Here in Hunan, you can drive for hundreds of miles, and on each side of the road you will see multiple little ghost cities and ghost villages dotting the landscape.
What's going on, guys? It's your boy Abdul, and today I just wanted to do a quick reaction on the secrets behind China's ghost city by serpentza. Let's see what he has to say. Man, that's a lot of empty buildings.
Let's head on to Shandong province next, and as you can see, right near the big city of Qingdao, as we rode our motorcycles through completely empty husks of buildings in another ghost city.
That's just crazy to me. I've heard about these towns before, but obviously I haven't been to China, so I don't know how it actually looks like, but seeing a bunch of really well-built buildings just standing there empty seems like a waste of money to me. Wow.
These things dot the landscape all over China. How about Guangdong province, where both myself and Matthew lived for the majority of our time in China? Here in Huizhou, you can once again see more ghost cities.
Damn. That looks just like crazy amount of money they spent on all those buildings. Look at that. I would venture to say each building could probably house about 1,000 people, probably.
That we used to visit from time to time. And of course, probably the most famous ghost city in China, Ordos, up in Inner Mongolia. Well, here you can see some of the photos I snapped as I went around the town, seeing all the Mongolian motifs and beautiful but empty, eerie, and soulless buildings, complexes, shopping malls, and housing estates. If you take a step back and actually look at the map, these are just the ghost cities that we have personally visited. We have seen more during our travels, but didn't have time to film, or were passing by, or whatever the case may be. The thing is, I think you get the picture. These ghost cities are all over China, and I'm going to tell you why they're so important and why the Chinese government has to lie to you and its own citizens in order to prevent the massive economic collapse that so many economists have wrongly predicted up until this point.
I know serpentza, like I said, I've watched a couple of his videos, but not religiously. I know he used to live in China, I believe for over 10 years, so he knows the ins and outs of the Chinese economy, so I'm quite interested to hear what he has to say.
It always baffled me how ridiculously over the top the cost of apartments in China were. I lived in quite a few different apartments, and although the rent was reasonable, and actually very cheap by international standards, the amount that these apartments were worth was just ridiculous, sometimes millions of US dollars. Well, it turns out that about 70% of China's wealth is stashed away in real estate. And, well, it's pretty easy to understand why. As an ordinary Chinese person, your investment opportunities are very, very limited and also extremely risky. The stock...
Yeah, I actually heard about that particular reasoning for why they built a lot of those cities. So one of it is just that most Chinese citizens, they are limited into where they can invest their money. So the best way that they could invest it is to invest it into real estate. And also, in order to get married, if you're a guy especially, you need to have a place, your own house, before most ladies will probably consider you. So yeah, that's another big problem. So a lot of people had invested into real estate. I think that's part of the reason.
The stock market has crashed several times, and the Chinese government randomly steps in and freezes, delists, meddles, and does whatever it wants in the stock market whenever it sees fit. I mean, we saw this with the whole Didi debacle and the Alibaba nonsense with Jack Ma disappearing, just to mention a few of the things they've done. Bitcoin is illegal, and all other means of investment are either not available to your average Chinese citizen or completely unappealing to your average person on the street. There is, however, one asset class that has never, ever faltered.
Real estate. Even in the US, you hear a lot of people talking about real estate as like the greatest investment of all time. I mean, it has its pros and cons, I would say.
And has never, ever been unreliable. And that is Chinese real estate. You are and have been guaranteed for decades in China that if you buy an apartment, no matter how shoddily constructed, some fool is going to come along and buy it from you at a large profit.
In economics, they call this the greater fool theory. And that is actually happening right now in the crypto and the larger stock market right now. But the true definition of the greater fool theory is just that you buy something, believing that someone else will come who is a bigger fool than you to buy it at a much higher price than what you paid for it.
You can't go wrong. Buy an apartment, sit on it for a few years, sell it, make loads of cash, buy more apartments, sit on them, sell them for loads of profit, rinse and repeat. It's a foolproof investment and a great retirement fund in a country that lacks even the most basic social programs. Of course, there's traditional significance to owning a house too, like the fact that if you want to get married, you have to show that you're a stable man and you have to have a house at the very least before you propose.
And that is what I was talking about earlier. Yeah, you do need to own a home already if you're a guy who is looking to get married. That will increase your odds of being chosen by a lady to be married. Hypergamy in full effect in China. Let's get it.
The thing is, people are sinking their savings into real estate, and it's not the house they live in. Of course, if you can afford a house and you buy the house, well, when I say house, I'm talking about an apartment. You don't own the land, and it's actually only a 70-year lease. It's kind of a ridiculous situation, but...
What? 70-year lease? Even if you buy the apartment? I didn't know that. Huh. Interesting. Anyway, well, let's go.
Anyway, you own that, but if you want to really make an investment, you need to invest in further property. So in other words, you have to buy another apartment. And usually, this is where the ghost cities come in. You see, owning a property in the cities is incredibly expensive. And for your average person, they just have to scrape by just to pay their rent or to pay for the apartment that they live in. Now, for your investment property or investment apartment, you need a cheaper option. So that's why they build these ghost cities out in the middle of nowhere. Nobody wants to go live there.
Man, those apartment buildings from afar looks quite nice, but I guess once you get closer, some of them are shoddy construction buildings. Nicely designed cities. Unfortunately, no one is going to be living there.
It's far-flung. It's like an hour or two's drive out of the city to get there at the very least. But that's why the apartments are affordable, and that's why people invest in them, because they're affordable. Because, you know, don't forget, in China, you buy an apartment, it doesn't matter where it is, the price is only going to go up, right? And that...
Wrong. In real estate, it's all about location, location, location.
That's why they create these ghost cities. And nobody goes and lives in them. They just buy and invest in them. And the thing is, once you've bought your investment property and you're not going to live in it, well, there's no point in doing anything to it. There's no point in installing plumbing or electricity, flooring, walls, windows, anything like that. In fact, investment properties around China in general are just complete husks that look like they're under construction still or part of a construction site. And there's a very good reason for this. And the reason is that if you were to spend the money to do all the decoration, to put in the plumbing, to put in the flooring, to put in the walls and everything else that goes along with it, the value of the apartment would actually go down. And this has got to do with Chinese traditional beliefs that if you buy an apartment that's already...
That is crazy to me. How badly they must have built this building. Look at that. It's almost like crumbling already, and it's a newly built apartment. That's crazy.
Fully furnished and all set up, you will then be taking on the previous person's bad karma or bad juju or bad feng shui.
In Africa, we call it voodoo.
So the whole thing is, if you buy an apartment and it is already decked out with decoration, you're going to knock that stuff out anyway and start fresh. So it's going to cost you money to basically destroy what's there and start from the beginning. So if you start with an empty shell, it's worth more to you. So why bother putting in all this stuff if it's going to make your apartment worth less? And also, why bother renting it? Because the rent that you will get is only a fraction of what you're paying for your mortgage anyway. I'll just give you a brief example. A friend of mine bought an apartment in Shenzhen, which of course is one of the most expensive real estate markets in the entire world. They were paying around 30,000 RMB a month for their mortgage, and they could only rent it out for a measly 4,800 RMB. So what's the point?
That is insane. Paying over $4,000 and you can only rent it out for $705. That's insane. God damn. Shit.
There's really no point. You're getting a fraction of the cost back. Now you've got the hassle of a tenant. Now you have to go and make sure they're happy, deal with all their complaints. On top of that, you've devalued your apartment by actually making it livable. All of this aside though, you stand to make a lot of money. Doesn't matter, like I said, doesn't matter what you buy or where you buy, as long as you're buying an apartment, at the end of the day, you will be able to sell it for more and you will be able to turn a big profit. And now you can probably see why Chinese real estate is in fact, as we stand today, the most valuable asset class in the entire world. No joke. I mean, it's valued at something like $60 trillion. And without getting too financial on you here, because I'm not a finance guy, I can tell you that it takes up about 30% of China's GDP, or something stupid like that. We're talking massive numbers. This is such a huge part of China's economy, and this is also why the Chinese government cannot allow it to fail. The thing is, though, behind closed doors,
that is such a huge number. $60 trillion?
It has, for the first time in history, actually started to fail. At the end of the day, it's the Chinese government who gets to say if the real estate market is going to be valuable or not. You see, they have all sorts of tricks up their sleeve. When the market starts to cool off a little too much, in other words, they see a downturn and it starts to slow, they simply take away interest rates. Oh, now you can buy a property and you pay 0% interest rates. In fact, you've seen all sorts of programs where they even say that they'll pay your first year's worth of mortgage for you. All sorts of weird and wonderful little ways to get people interested in buying property when the market cools down. The thing is, when it starts to overheat, they simply put a bunch of restrictions in place, like, oh, couples are only allowed to buy a certain amount of apartments. This has led to...
No. If you tell me I'm only allowed to buy a certain amount, I'll just say no. No. No.
all sorts of nonsense like people getting divorced on paper just so they can buy more property. The difference is now is it's not about the consumer anymore. That's not what the issue is right now. It's about the construction companies themselves. I'm pretty sure we've all heard about Evergrande, this massive big property developer in China, and how it's been, well, running into troubles recently. Well, what if I told you that every single real estate company in China is currently in deep, deep trouble?
I would say you are telling the truth.
This entire industry is built on debt. The real estate companies take out huge amounts of debt to start their projects. They get huge amounts of investment from potential buyers, and then using that investment as capital, get even more debt. So they use debt to pay off their construction workers, to pay off their material suppliers. They use debt to pay off the interest on the debt that they've taken. But now, in fact, over a year ago, the Chinese government decided that they're going to try and put a stop to this and try and cool it down a bit. And they came up with their 3 red lines policy, which, simply put, prevents these real estate companies from just taking out any debt whenever they want to. They have to meet certain criteria before they can then take out more debt. And it probably won't surprise you to find out that not a single real estate company in China met the criteria of these 3 red lines. In other words, now you've got all of the real estate companies in China not able to take out debts. Not just Evergrande, not just the big ones, but none of them can take out any further loans to pay off their debts. So this is a huge, huge issue. And we're going to see some big changes in the whole Chinese economy soon. Let's keep an eye out, because the Chinese government will fight tooth and nail to keep the bad news out of the press.
Oh man, I'm laughing at these two guys. Right? Serpentza. The facial expressions are funny to me.
Stop people from realizing that it's a bad idea to invest in property. So in short, these ghost cities are in fact a huge part of China's economic engine. Without them, there'd be nowhere to store all of this wealth. I know it sounds crazy, but these worthless buildings in the middle of nowhere actually support a massive portion of China's economy. And who knows what the future holds, but it's not good. Anyway, until next time, I hope you've learned something, and you know the drill. Unlike the Chinese real estate market, stay awesome.
And I will leave it at that. Thank you to serpentza for an awesome video. Once again, I have to go back and check out his channel for more content. And I would highly suggest you guys go to his channel. He has a lot of interesting stories about his time in China. And yeah, so if you like this video, you may like some of those videos as well. And thank you for watching. So if you enjoy this, make sure to hit the like button. Comment down below what were the fascinating points in the video for you. Also, subscribe to the channel. I'm new here, so let's get it going. I'm mostly going to be reacting to videos in the finance space. Until next time, peace and love to all of you out there.